agenda would be review of the February 28th minutes. Any changes? Okay, stand as written. Next item on agenda would be citizen comments for non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll go on to the consent agenda. We have a cereal malt beverage license application, and then we have mayor appointments recommendations. First, I guess the license would be Discount Smokes, and then the mayor appointments would be Tammy Younger to the Hayes Convention Visitors Bureau, Sister City, Stacy Lang.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Millick, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda would be I-70 water crossing and booster station, engineering design.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Brown, Project Manager for the City of Hayes. And to talk about the extension of water north of I-70 and booster station. When the water was extended north of I-70 and the 1.5 million gallon tower was constructed there in 1993, there were only a few businesses being served by the north pressure zone. Since that time, many businesses vital to the economy and daily needs of the residents of Hayes and the surrounding areas have located north of I-70. The single 16-inch water main that currently crosses under I-70 needs to have redundancy. The failure of that water main could have catastrophic consequences in case of a fire. The economic impact of being without water service north of I-70 for any length of time would be significant. Since 2017, city staff has been working with Bartlett and West engineers on a study to determine ways to address this deficiency in the city's water system. Bartlett and West maintains a model of the city's water system and has run several scenarios and come up with options for crossing I-70. Based upon the costs of the different options and the potential for orderly growth and economic development potential, an option that crosses I-70 at Hall Street and it was selected. It would connect a new 12-inch water main from 45th Street and Hall to an existing dead-end line along Hall Street at the west property line of Carico Implement. Plan also calls for the installation of a new booster pump station on city-owned property along West 41st Street, just east of Post Road, in the area where the city has an existing city water well and property owned by the city. The booster station would serve as a backup to the existing booster station and create the ability to provide higher water pressure to the northwest areas of the city. So to proceed onto the design stage, staff solicited fee-based proposals from qualified engineering firms, and on February 15th, the city received 6 proposals, with the lowest cost proposal submitted by Caw Valley Engineering of Junction City, Kansas, the amount of $59,860. Staff checked Caw Valley's references, and we received favorable reviews from Gladstone, Missouri, North Kansas City, and Junction City, Kansas. The current design schedule calls for a bid opening in October, with construction beginning in 2020. Inspection of the project is not included in this scope of work at this time and would be added later at a negotiated fee or solicited from other qualified firms. Due to anticipated workload during the time of this project is under construction, in-house inspection is not likely. In addition, overseeing the construction of a booster station would be beyond the current expertise of inspection staff. Project was listed in the CIP of the 2019 budget with a cost estimate of $2 million to be funded out of water capital. The cost of design engineering would be included in that $2 million estimate and paid out of water capital. The options for the commission are to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Call Valley Engineering, direct staff to another option, or do nothing. And here is the action requested.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize city manager to enter an agreement with Call Valley Engineering, Inc. in the amount of $59,860 for engineering services related to the design of the I-70 water line extension and booster pump station to be funded from water capital.
Second.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Swaller. Any comments?
I do have a question. The location of the booster pump station, that won't have any effect in years to come, should we decide to put in a fire station?
No, we'll make sure to locate it on the site. In fact, the plan right now is to locate it inside the fence of the water well, existing water well boundary, so it would be within close proximity and out of the way of where a potential fire station could go.
Okay, thank you, John.
Hey, John, on the slide where you had the proposed booster pump station, it's not just along that yellow line where we'll see increased pressure, it's that whole area, correct?
Right, it's everything north of that yellow line would see the higher pressure. And what it would be is everything, right now, everything north of the interstate
Okay.
is at a higher pressure. With the new plan, with this new plan and the new booster station, everything north of the yellow line would be at the same higher pressure. So we're basically moving the boundary between the pressure zones, because we have two pressure zones in the city. We have the main tower, a lower pressure zone, and then north of I-70 we have the smaller tower on a higher pressure zone. So we would be creating, we would move the boundary between the two pressure zones along 41st Street. It could vary a little bit from what's shown there. That's part of the scope of their services is to actually determine exactly where we would disconnect the lines between the two pressure zones. We may have to install some valves or make some disconnects or reconnects.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, so south of 41st, stay what it is now, the pressure?
Should stay what it
Okay.
is now.
I thought about that after the meeting last week, is the only reason I was asking. Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Brown,
Yes, sir.
Brown, what kind of guarantee is there in the contract after they design something that we will have increased pressure and flow? What if their design does not prove to do what we wanted it to do?
Well, everything they've been doing will be modeled, so they'll be running the model, and then I guess the industry standards, I would have to get back to you on that in terms of how that would be, how they would, if they failed to perform what they've agreed to perform, that would be a contractual.
I guess what he's trying to say is it's probably a John Bird issue.
Yeah, I think so.
Right. The concern is once we won't know if it works until we construct it. And if it doesn't, this is a unique solution. It's a great solution, and I like it. It'll be less expensive than the other options. But if they don't design it correctly, we could actually be out more money. But we'll wait and see how it turns out. I just wanted to know what Mr. Bird would weigh in on that.
Well, at that time I will, but in my opinion, we're protected contractually from the
Thank you.
results of any negligent act, if that's what we're talking about.
I don't really have any questions, but I really appreciate city staff bringing this up and bringing it to the attention, because I think that the potential is there for something really bad. So it really shows forward thinking on the part of city staff. You don't have commissioners going out and looking at water line connections and making sure that they're correct. That all falls on you guys. So thank you for your hard work and forethought.
Any comments? Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Passes 5-0. Okay. Now next item on the agenda, I will open the public hearing for special assessments for the Heart of America Second Edition and Kingsgate First Edition.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. Special assessments for 2 special improvement districts within the City of Hayes are ready to be finalized, assessed to the property owners. This ordinance is the next step and will allow the city clerk to assess the cost of the improvements to the 2 areas should the property owners choose not to prepay. Before we get into the districts and the ordinance, I did want to share with you the time schedule of events. As you may be aware, these proceedings are twofold. We have the special assessment component and the bond component, as state statute requires the costs of the improvements to special improvement districts be bonded. However, given the small size of the bond, which I'll get into in a moment, city staff has taken the suggestion of David Arterberry, the financial advisor, and not putting this out to public bid. This means that bonds will not be put out for public sale. It's near impossible to do that with an issue of this size. And considering the cost of issuance in a public placement, it's not feasible as well. So we asked local banks to make an offer on this bond issuance, and Bank of Hayes is the low at 3% across the entire 15-year term of the bond. It streamlines the process and lowers the cost of issuance, which ultimately saves the property owners some money in the long term. So on March 1, a notice of hearing and statement of costs proposed to be assessed was published in the Hayes Daily News, and a letter of such sent to all the property owners. Tonight, obviously, is the public hearing and approval of the assessment ordinance. On April 18th, we'll be back at the work session to review the bond ordinance. April 19th is the final day of the 30-day prepayment period for property owners. We'll ask for the passage of bond ordinance on April 25th, and then hopefully have closing and delivery by May 15th. Excuse me. So the first area in the assessment is the Heart of America Second Edition. This is in the southeast corner of the city. This is an area close to Glassman Corporation headquarters and the Army Reserve Center. This will be a 15-year assessment on 3 lots based on percentage of developable area of each lot. This included installation of water lines, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer, along with grading, paving, curbing, and guttering. Total amount to be assessed is $277,836.51, which includes a 30% apportionment from the developer and an estimate of issuance costs. Current property owners of record will be mailed a notice of assessment and given 30 days to pay their assessment. If they choose not to pay the assessment, proposed the cost of the improvements plus interest charges from bonding the project will be placed on the tax roll of Ellis County. The second assessment is the replat of Kingsgate First Edition. This is an area in the very northwest corner of the city. This will be a 100% 10-year assessment split among 52 lots based on square footage. These costs were for the park improvement to the green space located on Lot 17, Block 1 of the area. Talking about right. The total amount to be assessed is $82,163.49, which includes an estimate of issuance costs. Current property owners of record will be mailed a notice of assessment and given 30 days to pay their assessment. If they choose not to pay the assessment or any portion thereof, the cost of the improvements plus interest charges from bonding the project will be placed on the tax roll of Ellis County. So after you hear public comment and then close the public hearing, our recommendation and action tonight will be approval of the ordinance.
Yes, I will. I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to ask if there was anybody else who would like to speak in the open meeting?
If it's,
Huh?
I was going to say,
I think he
I
did.
did open-
He
I
did,
did
excuse
open-
me.
I'm
missed
sorry.
it.
Yeah, I did
You
open.
missed it.
Sorry about that.
okay,
guys.
sorry, I guess I missed that.
You missed it too.
If it's okay, I had some.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Yeah,
Commissioner.
so this, as you guys are already aware, at the work session, there were some folks in the Kingsgate edition that had some concerns about their special assessment for the park. I did some inquiring of my own, and if it's okay, it may be a little lengthy, but I'll share that with you. One of the things that was a little bit, I just didn't understand. I didn't understand how, we passed, I shouldn't say we because I wasn't part of it, but the resolution was passed in 2012 for these assessments. And even though the park wasn't built until last year, that should have been a part of the public record and should have shown up. So I called the county, and I started with the Register of Deeds, moved to the appraiser's office, talked to the county clerk, and eventually just went down to the courthouse myself to the registrar's office, and I was able to find the resolution that was passed in 2012 that states what the special assessment is going to be, how much the costs are going to be, and that it applied to all of these lots. So I don't know where the communication breakdown occurred, but we had two residents here last week who were basically implying that the city had done something wrong. And I think that it just needs to be stated again that everything was done in 100% according to how it should have been done. The resolution was passed as it should have been passed. All of the current property owners at the time signed off on it, which is why there was no public hearing, because there was no need for a public hearing. The resolution was filed with the county clerk, which was then filed with the registrar, which is on public record and is clearly available because I was able to find it. So if the property owners were not aware of it, then the breakdown either occurred during the sale, where the previous owner did not disclose that during the sale, or during the title search, in which their title search company didn't do a proper search because I was able to find it at the courthouse. In either case, none of those affect the city. It's not part of the city, and quite honestly, it's not the county's fault either. The county is the repository for the documents. The city sent the documents over, and quite honestly, that's where our responsibility ends. So if there is unawareness, then unfortunately, it's probably on the part of either the title company not doing their job or the buyer not really reading their documents. I just wanted to go ahead and say that there were some suggestions that essentially the city should have made them aware of it, and the fact of the matter is that the city is not involved in the buying or the selling of individual private party property. So where you really want to be made aware of this special assessment is before you buy the property. How would the city ever know that somebody is thinking about buying a property in that location? There is no way for us to know. So to suggest that we should in some way be responsible for notifying these homeowners of that is quite frankly ludicrous.
I appreciate you going to the courthouse and looking that up.
Yep.
Ma'am, you need to come and state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Sandy Dinkle, and I'm one of the owners up there. And I was sent this document. My issue's not with the city. But what I don't understand is it took two of us to close on that house. How can only one party sign on that and the other party not see that document and not sign that document?
That's part of it. So the breakdown was either between you as the buyer, it was either on the seller's part where they didn't notify you, or it was on your title company's part for not finding that document and making you aware of it.
Okay. Yeah, because my issue's not with the city.
Right,
Take it
and
elsewhere.
right, and I'm not saying that there wasn't breakdown. I'm just saying that.
Well, I am original owner. I mean, we are the only owners of the property. And, I mean, to me, if my name needs to be on there, my husband's name does not qualify for my name. I am my own individual, and I need my own name on there.
Right,
And I got a copy of it from the courthouse, and my name is not on there. It is not signed by me.
right, and again, that sounds like that breakdown happens at the buyer and the seller level, which we're not involved
Yeah.
with. So.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Swaller, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, ordinance levying special assessments.
Okay, your recommended action.
Unless you have any other questions of me, our recommendation and action requested then is approval of the assessment proceedings in ordinance 3961.
I'd move that we approve the assessment proceedings in ordinance number 3961 levying special assessments.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Millick. Any questions? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. That's 5-0. Next item on the agenda, ordinance amending Chapter 14 of the City of Hays, Kansas Code of Ordinance by modifying Article 2, Section 14 regarding alcoholic beverages.
Good evening, Commissioners. Once again, Kim Rupp, Director of Finance. State statute defines cereal malt beverage as any fermented but undistilled liquor brewed or made from malt or from a mixture of malt or malt substitute, or any flavored malt beverage, but does not include any liquor which is more than 3.2% alcohol by weight. Statute further defines beer as a beverage containing more than 3.2% alcohol by weight obtained by alcoholic fermentation of an infusion or concoction of barley or other grain, malt, and hops in water, and includes beer, ale, stout, lager beer, porter, and similar beverages that have the same alcohol content. In the City of Hays, cereal malt beverage licenses allow for the sale of cereal malt beverages with no more than a 3.2% alcohol content by weight. As of April 1, 2019, that same cereal malt beverage license, by statute, will also allow for the sale of beer containing not more than 6% alcohol by volume. Given the above change in state statute, it is now necessary to modify Chapter 14, Article 2, Section 14 of the City of Hays Code of Ordinances, so that whenever a reference is made to cereal malt beverages, the code will also reference beer containing no more than 6% alcohol by volume. There are no changes needed to the cereal malt beverage licensing procedures or qualifications in the city clerk's office. All current CMB licenses will remain in effect and will automatically qualify under the new ordinance. So this evening, our recommendation and action requested is to approve Ordinance 3962.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 3962, amending Chapter 14 of the City of Hays, Kansas Code of Ordinances by modifying Article 2, Section 14 regarding alcoholic beverages.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Melick, second by Commissioner Jacobs. Any comments? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda, exercise an option to purchase property near 27th and Commerce Parkway.
In March of last year, the City Commission secured an 18-month irrevocable option, allowing them the ability to purchase the property located at the northeast corner of 27th Street and Commerce Parkway for approximately $800,000. The option was structured that it allowed for a credit of the $50,000 that degraded the closer you got to the 18 months. So it was requested that this be put on the agenda to exercise the option to purchase. And Kim, do you have the clicker? So if the commission does want to move forward with the option, the net sum is approximately $782,608, and then the shared cost of closing and title insurance, and that would be paid for out of the commission capital reserve.
Mr. Chairman, I move we exercise the option to purchase the land near 27th and Commerce Parkway for the net sum of approximately $782,608, plus shared closing costs and title insurance to be funded out of the Commission Capital Reserve, and the resolution number 2019-005 be approved as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Jacobs, second by Commissioner Melick. Comments?
I have a little bit that I'd like to say. When the City Commission elected to take an option on the land described here tonight, it was for what I deemed to be very valid reasons, and I believe those reasons still exist. We'd heard consistently over the past numbers of years about land prices were too high. I heard from developers and even realtors. I have also heard, why can't we do what Garden City does? What they do is incentivize. Owning this property can be a huge incentive opportunity in some format for us to use with developers. One thing I believe about retailers is that there is a benefit, if there is a benefit to a community being on an interstate highway, they seldom want to get much past a half to 3/4 of a mile from the interstate with their project. If they have to go farther, they're going to search for another exit, which may or may not be in the community you're in. Salina is an example of a fortunate community in which retailers, quote, developed, end quote, 4, arguably 5 very strong exits off 135. The east side of our community has strong development with Hays Med, North Central Kansas Technical College, Bruckner's, and an increase in rooftops over the last 10 years. Also, Commerce Parkway, north of the interstate, in my opinion, seems another developable gateway to the North Vine corridor, auto dealerships, Home Depot, motels. I was in favor of completing the additional mile of 41st Street north of Home Depot. In fact, I believe we should have gone all the way to Commerce Parkway. I remember when a previous governing body struggled to justify an investment in infrastructure north of I-70 on Vine. Once the city did, that area started to grow. I believe that can happen here as well. I chose to run for the position of city commissioner not to make sure what we do tomorrow is right, but to be sure we consistently keep an eye on opportunities for our future, the next 10 or even 20 years, opportunities which can cause the sustainable economic growth of this amazing community. Thank you.
I don't know where to start for sure, but I'm going to start with the City of Hayes has hired retail strategists, a national retail and business recruiter, to recruit retail and business for the City of Hayes. We have Grow Hayes that is actively recruiting manufacturing businesses. And we are competing regionally as well as nationally for companies. We have businesses that have come to Hayes that want to locate in Hayes, but walked away because they couldn't acquire land at a reasonable price and went elsewhere where they could find land at a reasonable price. Private enterprise in the past has provided land, but now they are hindering the recruitment of retail, manufacturing, businesses with their high prices of land. An example of that are two large tracts of land on Vine north of I-70. One of them is listed at $220,000 per acre. The other one is $600,000 per acre. Taxpayers paid for the streets and water and sewer along those properties. These property owners did not pay for that. They are only paying the county taxes on $4,000 an acre ground. A few years ago, we extended 22nd from Canterbury to Commerce for better traffic flow, which we did achieve, and we hoped that we could get retail, businesses, and affordable housing developed along that street. Taxpayer paid for the land and the right-of-way and utilities along that stretch of land. Overnight, this $4,000 an acre farm ground suddenly is $80,000 to $130,000 per acre price. I don't know how you can justify that kind of means. I don't have a problem with the private sector making a profit, but it is starting to hinder the City of Hayes' growth. The community is screaming for affordable housing. No matter how small you make the lots or how narrow you make the streets, you can't achieve affordable housing with starting with land at $80,000 to $130,000. We can buy this land for $8,800 per acre. We can extend utilities under I-70 and improve Commerce and 27th intersection and still be way under the $80,000 to $130,000 land prices on the other side of the interstate. We can purchase this 91 acres for the same price that you can only buy 1¼ acres on North Vine. We could then offer this land at a reasonable price for retail, manufacturing, business, and even affordable housing development. The private sector over the years have invested in themselves. And now is the time and place that we have a chance to invest in ourselves and the future of Hayes. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate the well thought out arguments that both of you have. I do. I think it's been framed that I'm against this, and I don't really think that that's true. I'm not against it. I'm just not for it, if that makes sense. All of those things that you guys have said are true, and I completely understand the reasoning behind wanting to do this, and I also, in some respects, I really feel like the folks who are opposed to this are opposed to it for the wrong reasons. I've heard a lot of, the city has no interest in buying the land. What do they think they're getting into land speculation, all that kind of stuff about, well, cities do that all the time. It's called industrial parks, and the reason that they do it is because they want to bring in industry and jobs and thus tax revenue. And that's exactly what this is. We're buying land, wanting to bring in retail, which brings in tax dollars, which we survive off of. So the concept is not any different. There's not anything wrong with the city looking at buying this land or purchasing this land. It's perfectly reasonable. It makes perfect sense, and there's nothing wrong with it. At this time, for me, after talking to the retail consultants, I think that we could get better use out of this money someplace else. That's my only caution with it. The only other thing that I would point out is that I feel like perhaps we're talking about two contradictory things, because I think what you said is true. We went from $4,000 an acre to now $80,000 to $120,000 an acre simply because the infrastructure was there. But then we also talk about wanting to put in more infrastructure, and so it's kind of a chicken or egg situation. And I think that Commerce Parkway is kind of a poster child of why putting in infrastructure proactively is not a good idea, because the place where we're seeing the growth is at exit 157, where we have all kinds of industries out there who are now clamoring for infrastructure, which is fine. But the reason they went out there most likely instead of going to Commerce is because of land costs, and so now we have to go and put in the infrastructure. And I don't think that's a bad model. I don't think it's a bad model to wait for the development and then put in the infrastructure. And so in a way, I kind of view this as, on the one hand, we say that we want to put in a bunch of infrastructure, but then the land cost goes up and we feel like that's hindering development. And so then we also have to buy the land. And I'm just not really sure where that stops, if that makes sense. I think I'm in the minority here. I completely understand why you guys want to do this, and I appreciate that. It's just not something that I feel like I can support at this time.
May I say one thing?
No, go ahead.
I would like to point out that we wouldn't put this infrastructure in until this land would sell. So
Right. Of course, I have 41st Street, in the back of my head as I'm saying
yes,
that. But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point. Mayor, did you have any comments?
I do. 2 years ago, the commission, after hearing month after month of declining sales tax revenue, one commissioner said, we need to have a strategy to deal with this. It's clear that we have declining revenue because at that time of an economy that was sagging. And sales tax is the primary driver of the city's budget, not property tax. And at the same time, we are told, anecdotally, that we need more retail, we need more restaurants. We have a comprehensive strategy. We have the best analysts in the country using proprietary data. They pointed out that we do need additional retailers. There are gaps in retailers and retailers and restaurants that can be filled. It's going to be a long process. They also indicated, I've had 3 conversations with them, that they like this property. They don't see immediate development, but they see a value to it, and I do too. I think this is a great bargaining chip. It may not get developed this year or next year. It may be 10 years from now. It may be for one of the uses that Commissioner Melick pointed out. But if we give up this option today, we're essentially surrendering the land to others who will charge, as the other 2 commissioners have pointed out, well, actually 3, all 3 have pointed out so far, exorbitant prices. This shows that we still hold this card and that we're part of a bigger strategy to grow our entire economy. Because as one of the commissioners said, this is a chicken or egg issue. We need more people, right? We need more housing, right? We also need more retail. We are a regional economy that draws over 90,000 Northwest Kansans for shopping, education, and health care. If we let this land go now, we have essentially folded our hand and walked away. I'll be voting yes.
I appreciate everybody's comments, and I guess kind of the same way with Commissioner Myers. I won't be voting for this, but I agree with everything you guys said, and I will 100% support the commission with tonight's vote. I guess my opinion is as Commissioner Millick said, the prices north of town have just went through the roof, and we've been told that's why people won't come here. Whether that's true or not, I mean, that's what I've heard ever since I've been on the commission. People won't come here. My opinion, what I've heard from not only retail strategies, all the information read, is retail is just not expanding anywhere in the United States, which I'm a big believer that I want to help grow Hayes. I think Hayes will grow. We need to grow faster. I don't think this is the answer, in my opinion. I don't think it's a bad deal for Hayes. I don't think we're desperate, and so in my opinion, I won't be voting for it, but I do support the commission's vote on it. All in, ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Passes 3-2.
I have nothing.
Executive session, okay. Commissioner Swaller?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Mr. Meyer? Melly?
Yeah, I want to welcome the college ladies basketball tournament to Hayes, and go Lady Tigers.
Yay.
I agree with Go Lady Tigers. I'd also like to thank my fellow commissioners for the really intentional discussions about the land purchase before us tonight. I said when I first joined this commission that if we voted the same all the time, 4 of us could stay home. I think everybody did their homework, came up with why they voted yes or no. Again, I think it's a good project, but I respect all of my fellow commissioners and everything we do, and this is no different.
I do too, Commissioner Jacobs. This is one of those things I went back and forth quite a bit, and it was just a personal thing for me that I personally didn't feel like it was the right thing to do, but I truly think in 20 years, hopefully less, that we're going to look back and say this was the right thing to do. So I appreciate the respectful comments of everybody, and go Tigers. We are adjourned.